Hi, folks. Welcome to this edition of the India InsurTech Podcast. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Vaibhav. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks for the opportunity. It's really exciting to be on this podcast. My name is Vaibhav Dobriyal. I'm the Chief Product Officer at LUMIQ. LUMIQ is a data analytics specialist. And the only line of business that we do is data and analytics. We are focused on financial service industry. We completed 10 years. And it's an interesting milestone because we are probably the only company which is focused on data and analytics in FSI today, right?
Very interesting.
We were born in the cloud, 350 plus people today, spread across geographies. And one thing that has worked very well for us is the way, the cloud and the AI, ML and Gen AI has been happening. We have been riding that wave. The first regulated entity in the whole of Asia to go to cloud was a customer, and we still work together. That has been our journey. So we have been in the forefront of data and analytics. So really, really good times for the industry and the pace at which innovation has been happening. And we have been lucky to work with wonderful customers across insurance, banking, and participating in this way.
Wow, congratulations, first off, on 10 years. You spoke about Gen AI, you spoke about AI and ML. I'd love to understand, this industry. There's a lot of, the landscape is completely evolving when it comes to data and analytics. How do you see that playing a pivotal role? And in addition to that, if you can tell us maybe 3 key transformations that you think are reshaping the industry.
It's really interesting because we all experience insurance, right? I'll give you one example. It will help you put things into perspective. So 5 years ago, if you were into a car accident and you were to have a claim, right? You were all used to spending a day or two just to get the surveyors done and everything before the claim get processed, right? Today, all you have to do is take few clicks here and there of the car and the accident report it, and then you have multiple plethora of options. You want this to be done all by yourself, make a payment and all that, right? So this paradigm shift, right, has been possible because of only one thing: the advancement of technology, and that to data and analytics. See, we spent last 10 years building these systems. The industry was doing that, but what has happened in the last 2-3 years has been the renewed focus and the fact that AI ML has gone from being a hype thing to something that works on ground. Today, you don't have to explain to somebody that, I want to do AI ML first. So everybody in the boardrooms, down to people who are playing with the data, know that why data is important, what we are doing, and what are the possibilities. I think that has been a big paradigm shift that has come in. We have all become observant. I'll give you one interesting fact that, there has never been a time in the industry where we had more focus on data maturity, more focus on the mindset that is playing, right? For example, you look at another thing. The regulators were seen as people who were just there to put a check on these entities. But look at what is happening today. The regulators and the insurance companies both are innovating together, right? Today, regulators are encouraging, IRDA is encouraging to have sandbox. They are asking that, hey, let's build product, let's experiment. All this is riding on data and analytics, right? So 2-3 key things. I think the first and foremost was the cloud. You can't go beyond the fact that one of the biggest transformations accelerator has been cloud. The second accelerator has been the democratization of technology, be it AI/ML, be it Gen AI, right? It has become available to anybody and everybody, right? The time it takes for this tech to start somewhere, wherever it is, to reach to everyone has really shortened. And then the third is this mass adoption across the board that you can err, you can experiment, you can go wrong. I think these are the 3 big things that have happened. I left out Gen AI in that answer, but that has been another enabler of sorts. It's too early. I'll give you one statistic I read just a few days. So as per IDC, 70% of respondents in a recent survey said that they believe Gen AI is really strong. It's going to create an impact. But the interesting side is that only 10% of those respondents are today committing dollars, right?
Oh.
So we already know, and it's not new. I mean, people read it both ways. The way I read it was the same thing with cloud. It was the same thing with AI. This time the cycle is going to be shorter, right? So unprecedented times, in terms of pace at which innovation is happening for me.
Yeah, interesting. And we're speaking on technologies. I'd love to know how, from your vantage point, you're seeing AI and machine learning, bring about impacts for insurance companies to assess risks and detect frauds. And that'll be interesting to understand from you.
So, okay, I think before I answer that question, why insurance exists, right? The only reason why people, customers like you and me buy insurance is to get coverage against an uncertainty, right? Against an unforeseen event that might happen to us, right? So though people talk about, being able to procure insurance faster, policies issued, I think that is bare basic. That is something that must be there. What's really important is the speed at which claims get processed, right? And because that's the coverage you're buying, right? Essentially, you want protection against that incidence, right? So the interesting thing there is that how much time it takes. Now, when you are pursuing time as something, which solves this problem, the issue that you get into is you take risk in terms of fraud,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's a balancing act, right? Because when you have a short, and that's where it becomes, humans alone cannot solve this problem. And that's where, all your data, all your claim information, because the same example that I went to, right? When you're taking pictures of the car, you have to ensure that, it's the right coordinate, location, the right angles, and the assessment is done and the garage is listed. So all that happens in the background. So
Yeah.
it's a balancing act, and we have seen great success, in terms of claim processing, be it health, be it tariff digitization, where all this tariff data that is coming in from hospitals, how do you organize it, put it into a structure so that it's quickly queryable, and again at the same time balancing that, which are the hospitals which are blacklisted, which have higher rates compared to many others. All this is happening background continuously, right? Similarly, garages. So all this is happening in the back end. So your speed at which you issue policies, like I said, it's the bare foundation. On that side, what's happening is you're able to do faster underwriting, you're able to augment, again, tap into the data, minimize the risk of early claim fraud, all those aspects. And then when you're actually doing the claim assessment, right, there you're able to reduce this time by having this right tech. So you are tapping continuously into, what's coming out of your own data, and, live integrations with the data that is being shared and so on. So that's how that's, problem being solved. And there are some interesting numbers. We've seen 60% increase in underwriting times being shortened. On the other side, when you look at claim tax, you're able to reduce 70% tax. And these are not numbers from, any of the studies. These are the quotes from actual work that we are doing with insurers in India. So those are the possibilities, and that's where, all this is coming into play. I think the next, what is going to happen with Gen AI and is how this information gets consumed, especially the ad hoc information. That's also going to change. Business users are going to have an accelerated way of getting access to the information. I think that has something which has not been solved for years, and I believe that's where it's going to change. It's not, we are not yet there, but this time it will not take 10 years that we have spent to reach where we are today. So yeah.
That's true. That's true. I wanted to also end this podcast with one more question from you. Is how would you say, you obviously given examples of how you impacted and these data points around 60% reduction in underwriters time being utilized better and claims TAD, etc. Can you give us some stories on how specific stories and how LUMIQ has helped insurance companies reduce these TATs as well?
See, okay. I think before I answer that question, what's important to know is two things, right? What's different about us? See, many a time there's a small difference between how these numbers get converted into actual value and where you miss the mark. I think one key difference that has been unique to LUMIQ is the focus on FSI and, for example, insurance, right? So there's a lot of domain focus that we bring along. So there are people who have spent their life in their previous avatar working on insurance companies' payrolls, right? So what they bring is a deep understanding on what you are trying to solve, right? So the question that you asked, right, for us, it was intuitive that the moment the customer is trying to solve the TAT, reduce the TAT of a claim, the risk is going up. The customer need not tell us those things. We know it because of, the team's experience on the other side. So this domain focus is something which has been there. Now, how it's working is very simple and complicated at the same time. But what's essentially happening is, right, all this data is flowing into the data platforms that we have. And then what's happening is a continuous profiling of that data. So when you talk about data, there are a couple of things that plague the whole process. One, of course, is the availability of the data itself. Second is the reliability of this data, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work that happens, but there's a structure around it. You need not commit long number of years to do it. Build it incrementally, do it right. That has been, one thing that has resonated well with our customers, and one thing that has led to tangible value creation, which is clearly demonstrable, compared to many other projects which take a lot of time and then, don't do what they are supposed to do. And with insurance, I think another big difference that we have seen is our data models. We have got our own insurance data models. We believe that that was one area which was where businesses had a struggle explaining to techies what is happening. Now, once you have people who understand domain, second you have your own insurance domain data models, it becomes far and more easier to solve this problem, and of course repeatability, right? So those are some of the key things that are happening, and where we have been able to create some value and show the differentiation.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's very evident from the data points that you put out that you're creating a huge difference in the market. And Vaibhav, we wish you the best from the India InsurTech Association.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.